Hi, I'm Kim Ingram, and I want to talk to you just a little bit about the plagiarism policy that the Board of Ordained Ministry has. I think you've seen a copy of it, and the expectation is that you'll read it and agree to abide by it. So I just wanted to give you a little bit of description about it. On the policy, you'll see that it does talk about a definition of plagiarism, and then it goes on to give some descriptions of what plagiarism looks like, just to give you kind of a clear idea about what original work is versus what it is when you take somebody else's work. It is a priority of the Board of Ordained Ministry that you submit original work. They want to know what you think, what you know, to see glimpses and examples of your ministry and your gifts and your call and what you've learned. So original work is a priority and an emphasis for the Board of Ordained Ministry. So once your papers have been received by the committee chair to whom you're going to submit them, somebody on the interview discernment team will run the paper through iThenticate. Some people who have been in school recently use a similar program called Turnitin, but iThenticate will compare your work with all the other work that they have in the database or in their system, and presents a report to the committee that says how much is unique and how much of it has been taken from somewhere else. It's not something for you to worry about, it's just something that you need to know is how we're gonna do this. We do encourage the use of resources. It's just when you use resources, it's important that you cite them. So it's important that you use footnotes, not endnotes, and cite what the source is that you have utilized. Especially at provisional membership, the expectation is that you're going to reference your seminary professors, the books that you've read, the book of discipline, other kinds of things. So it's just important that you footnote that. On the plagiarism policy, there are 3 sort of different levels of offense, and you can read through that and kind of see what the consequences are. The Board of Ordained Ministry has had to sit down and talk with people about plagiarism that has occurred in various ways. So I wanted to just give you a couple of ideas of how this has shown up in the past. And I would say the primary place that it shows up is with the sermon. And so in the sermon, sometimes what people have done is they picked up an old sermon that they preached several years ago, and then they maybe make some changes or re-preach it and then submit it to the Board of Ordained Ministry. What they haven't remembered or realized is when they originally preached the sermon that they had taken some ideas from other sources and forgot to document it at the time. Then when they submit it to the Board of Ordained Ministry, it shows up in iThenticate as being somebody else's work. Another thing that we've come to discover through iThenticate or through the plagiarism process is that sometimes people in the sermon don't know how to reference a source that they used when they preach, and so they just don't. And so it's important to kind of practice different ways that you do that, but when you are preaching and you're using somebody else's idea or somebody else's words, you need to reference that in the sermon as well as in the manuscript that you submit or the transcript. And then the other sometimes is just a lack of awareness that people have had about, in a sermon particularly, the need to reference somebody else's work or somebody else's ideas. So the sermon is one place to be sure to pay special attention that it is your unique work, or if it's not, that you have identified whose idea, whose thought, whose words it is. And then sometimes I think the other place people just get sloppy is they forget to cite a source. They use a source, they kind of realize that they did, but then they forget to footnote it and reference it. So to pay attention to that. I would say if you find yourself having a conversation with a committee chair or with the Board of Ordained Ministry Executive Committee because you have made a mistake related to plagiarism, it's important that you own the mistake. That's another place that, just having been a part of some of these conversations over the last several years, is that people then begin to deny, I didn't do that. And we know most of the time, almost all the time, nobody does it on purpose. It's an oversight, you're in too big of a hurry, it's an accident. So to recognize it can happen, sometimes it does happen, and to be curious about how it happened and to take ownership of that. Finally, I just remind you that along with the plagiarism policy, there is a document that you need to sign and return, and Adri has told you how to do that. we will ensure that everybody has read and agreed to abide by it. So we'll look forward to receiving that back from you. And we'll take any questions when we get together on August the 10th.